Greetings, happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio and podcast alongside Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin. I'm Steve Deace, brought to you by our good friends over at the First Cup Coffee Company, the Christian-owned Patriot Coffee Company that stands for the same values of faith, family, and freedom that so many of you do, but don't get the coffee for that reason. Get it because it's really good coffee. Freshness is kind of their thing. They put the roast date on there on every bag, and they get it to you as fresh and as fast as they absolutely can. If you want to try it today, get 10% off, and you go to firstcup.com. That's firstcup.com. You'll get 10% off if you use the promo code DACE. 10% off if you use the promo code DACE at firstcup.com. And if you subscribe, you'll get an additional 10% off as well. All right, coming up on today's show, we will begin playing Buy, Sell, or Hold at the bottom of the hour. We'll be joined by the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz, at the bottom of the next hour. But before we get to all of that, let's begin this hour with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by some good news out of the Lone Star State. Corey DeAngelis of the American Federation for Children, and who just was a guest on our show not that long ago, he says his organization targeted 13 Texas House Republicans who voted against school choice. 9 of them lost last night. According to Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas legislature now has enough votes to pass school choice. So that's some good news, and I'm bringing that to you first because elsewhere in Texas, particularly in federal offices, the news isn't so good. Texas's 23rd congressional district yesterday opted to reaffirm Congressman Tony Gonzalez in his primary, one of the swampiest swamp creatures in D.C. Moving on, the United States has been forced to halt humanitarian aid shipments paid for by U.S. taxpayers to terrorist sympathizers in Gaza after a maritime pier built for this purpose this year at a cost of $320 million taxpayer dollars broke apart in the Mediterranean Sea. The pier had been used to offload hundreds of metric tons of U.S. taxpayer-funded aid to the terrorist sympathizers, none of which has yet to be delivered to human beings despite being offloaded on that pier. That's according to the Pentagon. Check out this headline from Politico. DeSantis has spent years turning Florida into a haven for school choice, and those programs have been wildly successful. Now, some of Florida's largest public school districts face staggering enrollment declines and the possibility of closures.
Stop, don't come back.
And now, here's Russell Brand.
I've been a Christian a month now, and it's been a big change. Not that I've entirely changed as a person, of course I haven't, but I've taken on a lot of new concepts, and it changes you to accept that it's not like you're in a game show and by doing really, really good things you can get redeemed. No, repentance, to repent, means that you have to continually change and acknowledge that I am in a battle against myself, that I need to surrender myself to an ever-present, internal and accessible Jesus, that mercy is something that's given to me, been granted to me, that I live with through love, not something that I can sort of win or achieve by doing good deeds. It's brought incredible people to me, incredible literature to me. It's brought a sense of peace. And when I'm in doubt, I feel that instruction is there, accessible. I feel like I know what I'm supposed to do. And when I don't do what I'm supposed to do, that's even clearer. Like when I feel myself being selfish or inconsiderate or putting myself first or not thinking about how I can be better to other people, it's as if there is an inner illumination available to me now. I love the simplicity of the idea of God come to earth as a man to experience what it is to be human and to sacrifice himself, because that's the only sacrifice that could bring us home, that could give us the opportunity for redemption. I like the idea when I'm in prayer and in communion just alone, that there is a figure available, wounded and coronated, available to me. In my failings and my failures and in my fallibility, there is strength to be broken, not just broken by life in the sense of life is wearying and exhausting, but to be broken in the same way that you have to train an animal to behave itself, to be broken into better conduct. It's a beautiful journey to go on. I know I'm just at the beginning. I know I'm just learning. I know there's so much more to learn, and I'm so excited to learn more from you and for us to learn together. Let me know where your journey's taking you. Can you remember your first month as a Christian? And let me know if, since I've been talking about this publicly, it's made you think about Christianity differently. We're having lots of conversations about this stuff, and I'm so grateful to be having them with you.
And finally, a veritable dog walks man story. You may remember seeing this story a couple of years ago about the Japanese man who spent over $10,000, $14,000 to be exact, attempting to transform himself into a dog so he could fulfill his dream or fetish of living as a canine. Well, that man, known only by a pseudonym Toko, is back in the news saying he's given up the leisure pursuit because, quote, dogs and humans have different bone structures and the way they bend their legs and arms, so it's very difficult to make movements that look like this. Toko went on to say, quote, they think it's weird I want to be a dog for the same reason I can't show my real face. Learning Japanese today, today's phrase is this a byproduct of
Honda, Sony, Mitsubishi, Subaru, Toyota, Hitachi.
And that's what happened while we were away.
Is it strange that your montage actually put me in a better mood? That doesn't happen very often. Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
Brought to you by our friends over at Eden Pure. Speaking of being put in a better mood, they've got their fantastic BOGO deal right now going on their fantastic Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifiers. I messed up in the basement in the man cave over the Memorial Day weekend. We've got the wife loves those smelling oils that you plug in that keep the things smelling good throughout the house. And I went to swap the one out in the man cave, and I forgot about it, and that I had set it down on the table in the hallway in the basement, and I had forgotten about it. And then I was like, "What is this overwhelming smell down here?" Like 2 hours later, and I realized that I had left it there on the table. And it leaked out all over that table. All right, so the table's shot, but the smell, I mean, you guys know I like good smells, but this was too much. I mean, it was overwhelming, like headache kind of stuff.
I still have some of those in my car that I got for this studio when we rebuilt it. I just haven't brought it in yet. I got it for you, Steve.
And let's now continue on with the most effeminate live review ever.
You guys know I like good smells.
You guys, I told you, put me in a good mood, and this is what you get. All right, that's why everybody's like, be angry.
And I don't care who knows it
That's
anymore.
exactly right. So I'm like, what do we do down here? Wife's like, plug in the Eden Pure. We did. That thing was gone in like 15, 20 minutes. Smell totally gone. All right, so fantastic product. It's got so many 5-star reviews online, so many great reviews from you in the audience, and now you can buy one, get one free. And so if you want 4, buy 2, you'll get 2 free. If you want 6, buy 3, you'll get 3 free. See what I did there? All right, just use the code SteveBogo for buy one, get one. Steve Bogo is the code when you go to EdenPureDeals.com. That's EdenPureDeals.com, and use the discount code SteveBogo. A couple of things on Aaron's montage. Number one, we're going to discuss the Texas primary results with Daniel Horowitz when he joins us later in the program, so stay tuned for that. We have seen a trend around the country in this primary cycle where the replacing rhinos in primaries within state legislative races has gone markedly more successful than trying to do it at the federal level. And so we'll have Daniel give us some of that data, Texas being the latest example there, as Aaron pointed out in his montage. And what could be done about that moving forward. All right, so we'll get into that more with Daniel. I want to discuss things that I view as positive developments. We don't get a chance to do that a lot, if you guys are okay with that. And if you look at what is occurring now, one of the lodestars of success we have seen replacing rhinos at the state level has been the school choice issue. And that's the work that people like Rufo, DeAngelis, Americans for Prosperity are doing on that. Now, why is this the case? Because this is a clear outlier, right? And I remember when I wrote Truth Bombs back in 2018, and I pointed out there has been one issue in the country where we have moved the Overton window on that issue demonstrably to the right compared to where it was a generation ago. And that one issue was guns. And so I wanted to see, how did we do this on guns? What is there something unique about that issue that created this dynamic? that we were not able to accomplish on the life issue and many of these other issues at the time that I wrote this book. Okay. And when I looked at the gun issue, there was an outlier. And that is, you had the number one clear mainstream gun group, the NRA, like National Right to Life is, or Susan B. Anthony is on the pro-life side, or a Citizen Link or a Family Policy Center, which is part of FRC, would be on the, the pro-family marriage side, right? You have the seminal, archetype organization that is kind of everybody's go-to. Like when you go to a movie, even if you prefer Pepsi, most people will ask for what? Coke, right. I mean, even if you prefer Burger King or Wendy's, most people, when they think of fast food, first would be McDonald's, right? Same kind of thing, same kind of default branding, right? But in the case of guns, you had this other insurgent group called Gun Owners for America. And while they were no threat to completely overcome the NRA as an entity, they had enough of a market share, enough of a beachhead that they were a threat in enough individual races that, I mean, there was a point here where our local NRA actually endorsed the Democrat candidate for governor one year. All right. And so this upstart group gained enough of a following that even if the NRA wanted to totally just sell us out on the issues and go totally access-based and we're nothing but a GOP incumbent racket like most of, these major right-wing organizations have become, just like the party, okay, they couldn't afford it because there was enough Gun Owners of America nipping at their heels there that it kept them honest. And this dynamic really didn't exist anywhere else. I mean, at the time, who was the right of National Right to Life group that had enough of a following that it could hold them accountable? It didn't exist. And who could do that on family issues so that these groups, because the pressure on these groups to conform and just sell out to the party and get access to get money and stay funded, because they become bureaucracies, and ultimately a bureaucracy wants to sustain itself, right? Didn't exist on like any of these other issues. So there was an outlier there with guns that created this environment where we were constantly moving the argument to the right. And now things that would have been considered a decade ago in a lot of places, radical and nuts and crazy, like constitutional carry, for example, is just kind of happening like everywhere, right? And this dynamic is, I think, the reason why. So here, when it comes to education now, we are demonstrably moving the Overton window here to the right. And it's happening swiftly, all right? Why? Why have we been successful here and have not been successful in other places? And keep in mind, not always. I mean, you're going to run into some people that are very principled, that are going to be against school choice because they have a principled argument that they are concerned that we are going to open the camel's nose under the tent for government to get its hands inside of private education. And by the way, some of these bills, the way they are written, that could be a legitimate concern for sure. You have to be worried about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But I think we also understand that most of the Republicans that are against school choice, like I said yesterday, hey, I'm less patriotic than I ever used to be, but I'm not answering no for that question the same reason most of the people in that poll are. I'm the outlier. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Most of the people are answering that in that poll from yesterday because they think America is a force for evil. Well, I am concerned about America being a force for evil too because it's standing for the values of those people who actually hate America and not my own. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think we probably would all agree the percentage of those who on the Republican side who are opposing school choice on the principled grounds I just referenced compared to I'm really just a whore for the swamp and the system, it's probably an inverted ratio.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say it's at least 2-to-1, if not higher?
Oh, it's higher.
Okay, yeah, I would assume it is too. All right. And so that would also mean that these guys that AFP and people like Rufo and DeAngelis are working around the country to take out, would in many cases they're going to be pretty crappy on all the other issues. They're going to sell us out on the other issues too. Yeah. I mean, if you're a Republican beholden to the teachers unions, tell me exactly what left-wing constituency could be presented to you that you would not sell out to. You know what I mean? That is basically the indoctrination system of I mean, that's the indoctrination pillar of the Democratic Party is the government schools and their teacher unions. So if you're willing to be a simp for them, I mean, I would imagine at that point simping for the Rainbow Jihad or anybody, the open borders crowd is a walk in the park. If you're willing to go that deep down the rabbit hole, right?
Sure.
Okay. So they're doing a collective favor here and clearing out taking some trash out beyond just this one issue. So what is successful here? And what you're seeing here is it's not a unique outlier, quite like what you saw with the gun issue. What you're seeing here is actually the manifestation of a movement. And I pause there because we don't see this very often on the right. And they accept no premise of the other side's arguments. You see Rufo and DeAngelis and these guys on social media constantly just destroying the other side's talking points, taking no quarter, not accepting. It's literally like if you just, listen to the Steve Deace Show for 2 hours every day in their own ways. They have their own voices, their own, but methodologies of doing things. But it's basically just the refusal to accept the premise of anything that their opponents throw up there. Nothing. Don't use their terms, right? Like you'll even see a lot of major pro-life groups use terms like pro-choice and pro-life. Why would you use that? If they're using that language on MSNBC, you probably shouldn't be using that. Mm-hmm. Within your pro-life. No, these people are pro-baby killing, and we're pro-life. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're pro-murder, and they use that kind of language when it comes to the teachers' unions and the schools. So they give no quarter at all on their talking points. They accept no premise, none. So they have the messaging is down. You have a majorly funded organization like Americans for Prosperity providing the resources for this to occur, because romance without finance is a nuisance, right? All right. Everything takes money, I mean, there had to be clearly there are people who provided the upper room for Jesus and the apostles to take their first communion. Somebody had to have a space that big, right? Somebody had to volunteer to give it to them on the Sabbath, right? Or I'm sorry, over the Passover, when like every Jew would be in town and space was limited. Somebody had to have that kind of space to offer it, to donate it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, nothing happens without resources. It takes some form of resources. So they have messaging, they have money. Okay. And then they have a methodology, meaning that there is an outcome that they are going for. And it's a very specific policy-driven outcome that you're either for or you're against. Now, that doesn't mean it's the perfect outcome. I hear from those of you that oppose some school choice things in some of these states, and I understand your reasons why. And there have been a couple of you that have sent me your explanations for how your states are worded, and I would be troubled by that too. But that's also indicative, by the way, of a healthy movement on our side, in that all the arguments are happening to the right of the way, meaning that they're only happening to the right of the way the momentum is going, as opposed to we can't go that far right or we're going to lose. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So this is now, that's actually a good, healthy movement. You have people who are moving things to the right and behaving more pragmatically, and they are being at times criticized and held accountable by people who are concerned they're too pragmatic and not principled enough. And all of this, but this entire conversation from not taking the premise of the argument of the teachers' unions to even who some of their critics are, who are friends of mine on the right. Notice what that means, though. The entire conversation and all the momentum is happening in what direction?
To the right.
To the right. Their critics are from the right. They are not accepting anything from the left. They have moved the fulcrum, the Overton window, to the right. We're moving everything to the right. Did I say everything they're doing is great? Everything's perfect. No one's made any mistakes. Is that what I said?
No.
But by and large, what you're seeing here is what it looks like when you have an actual movement. When resources are spent to get a policy outcome and not to enrich myself, not to grow my engagement. I mean, I've got, I did a column for the Blaze that's out today based on the conversation I shared with you all last week about a little birdie who's on the ground canvassing Wisconsin for the GOP right now. And he's not even I see voter fraud under every rock guy, and he cannot believe what he is seeing in the voter rolls there, what he is seeing in the voter files there. And he's just like, this is the worst I've ever seen. We're screwed, okay? Stop and think about how many engagements have been successfully farmed on the issue of voter fraud since 2020. Many. How many followings have been built successfully based on the issue of voter fraud back in 2020? See what I'm saying?
Yes. How
much has actually been done about the issue of voter fraud since 2020? Not a damn thing substantively. Nothing. I mean, we've lost this so badly now that now look how they've evolved the terminology. It's not election fraud now. In fact, it's not even ballot harvesting now. Like even the term ballot harvesting doesn't have a sting to it anymore, does it?
No.
Now it's just, hey, that's their turnout operation. Wink and nod. Okay? Like this is just a college football system, and hey, one school's going to do $500 handshakes under the table, and the other school's only going to do scholarships. It's called recruiting. We're playing for a lot bigger stakes here, guys, okay, than a damn football game. It's not. Okay? No. It's watch your futures end. That's what it is. But we've completely lost the plot. It's not election fraud now. The term ballot harvesting doesn't even matter anymore. Now it's just, well, they have superior turnout to us. Watch, well, they'll overperform the polls by 9 points again in like all these races again. That's a miracle. Well, it's not a miracle. It's you get to make all the rules. No one holds you accountable to the rules that used to exist, and you can break them whenever you want and just call them the new rules. And guess how many times you're going to win if that is those are the metrics we're playing under. Almost always is the answer. Okay. But in this case, the plot has not been lost. The other side has lost the plot. Look at the Politico story that Aaron mentioned about what's happening in Florida with some of these government schools now closing because people are just Dunkirking. Not long ago, like 2 years ago, how many Republicans would have ran for the hills faster than you can say Iron Maiden at just the threat that voting for this would cause public schools to close from an outlet like Politico that no one that would ever vote for them would even read on a daily basis anyway. You see, yes. The answer is almost all of them.
Yes.
Now it's, in Florida anyway, it's Tuesday morning. I guess that means the schools suck. Okay, well, cool. Go to the ones that are good. The entire paradigm has shifted to the right because they have messaging, they have money, and they have a methodology. And so that means even the criticisms that matter now are also coming from the right. Hey, are we sure we're not going too far here? Hey, are we sure we're not giving a camel's nose under the tent here? Hey, are we sure we're not letting a foothold in here? Are we sure we're not, setting up a paradigm they'll use against us later on? Those are healthy conversations. Those are the conversations you have in a war when you're winning it. Like pre-summer of 1943, the Allies were not, are we concerned about civilian casualties? Are we going too far? Should we continue firebombing Dresden? Should we continue daily bombing of Tokyo? Have we considered what our terms of surrender were? They weren't having those conversations before the summer of 1943, were they? Right. Before the summer of 1943, the conversations they had, are we going to survive? Those were the conversations they were having prior to the summer of 1943. So there's a dialogue you have when you're losing, and then there's a dialogue you have when you're winning. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that everybody's always agreeing with one another. Is that what I said? No. That doesn't mean that you're always in the right, that you're never wrong. But the conversation, you can feel it, you can sense it, it shifts. And that is what has happened here. All they've done is what we have failed to do on the right for a generation. They have formed an actual movement. Messaging, money, and methodology. There's an outcome that they're seeking that's achievable, that they can hold people accountable to. And because of that, and because they have the methodology down, then they have the money to hold people accountable and take them out of races when they go rogue. They have the messaging to stop the other side from seeping in and saying, are you sure you don't want to be a racist today? They got this thing on lockdown right now. And here's the thing. This could have been done on the right most of our lives. We chose not to do this. We chose to take the deal instead. We chose to take access instead. We chose to just watch Fox News all day long and be the silent majority and vote to save the republic every single time and not care about primaries and all this stuff all over again, even to the point that even in my own home state that I've worked so hard with many others to cultivate and change over the last decade, we had a caucus and 14% of people showed up. History is won by those who show up. So, bravo. You guys have set the standard. You're setting the example. May your house increase and may others follow that lead. I want to say the same thing to what is happening with Russell Brand. And I say this as someone who has been, I've been pretty adamant throughout my career. Let's not rush to the first celebrity who bats his or her eyelashes at us with a talking point for cultural mainstreaming. I don't require cultural mainstreaming. I represent the armies of the living God. I have been elected to salvation by the King of the universe. I don't require your mainstreaming. I don't want it, and I wouldn't accept it if asked. Okay? So this has nothing to do with it. This is just to Russell Brand on an individual level. That is one of the most sincere conversations about Christianity I've ever seen. And I know after the Kanye West thing, I think you listened to his album at the time, Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. How would you compare that with anything you heard there from Russell Brand?
No.
Yeah. I mean, you could almost, the glow of a Holy Spirit high man is almost emanating out for him in that video. The amount of theology, he probably doesn't even realize it. He laid out for you what it feels like to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, the daily humility required. I know he was baptized Catholic, I believe, but he literally summarized the opening salvo of Luther's 95 Theses that all of the Christian life is a life of repentance. That goes back to Paul. I die daily. He talked about that. We go Romans 7, the daily pull in his flesh to go back to what he was before, and then the conviction he feels over that. I mean, the amount of theology. How long is that video, Aaron?
2.5 minutes.
The amount of theology Russell Brand put in that 2.5 minutes right there, guys, and he probably doesn't even realize it yet because he's new at this, is more than is happening than more of your suburban megapolises in 65 minutes every Sunday. Stay on the narrow road, brother. And, that was inspiring to hear. That was really cool. Gentlemen, your thoughts on anything I had to say or anything I didn't?
I would echo everything you said about Russell Brand. I guess I have a question. What you just laid out concerning education would seem to me capture a moment the same way the border, and obviously we haven't gotten any better on that over time, but the border captured Donald Trump finding the sweet spot in an election. Do you have a sense of why Donald Trump campaign, Trump people have not capitalized on this issue if it is so self-evidently successful along the multiple fronts that you've talked about?
I don't. But they're really not talking any issues right now as a campaign. It's not just this issue.
I agree.
They did prior to the 2020 election. They did try to make this an emphasis prior to the 2020 election.
I asked that only now. My follow-up.
This is not 2020.
And I want to be as fair as possible because the guy has in the last few months has been put on trial for his fortune, and is on another trial now where they're giving out sketch jury, deliberation. That can be a tad distracting.
Oh, no,
okay.
Undeniably.
So the true test will come when we get past the Alvin Bragg phase of the campaign. Okay. But and this was true even throughout the primary. They didn't talk issues very much at all. And when issues have come up, he's talked about them usually from the left, like on the life issue.
But all the success you're talking about is done in the face of the Democrat campaign, the union campaign, post-COVID, all of that. My biggest fear is that you talked about a lack of, they're not concerned with access. One of the biggest impediments to what we're talking about is whatever a Trump education policy looks like, because he's access-based. The fact that he's not saying or doing anything about this now is concerning.
Let's see what kind of messaging they have when we get past this phase, because that'll be quite telling when they're not daily bogged down in trial minutia. We'll see. So I've got some speaking engagements, some traveling coming up here this summer. Looks like I'm going to be in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee this weekend for Kevin Sorbo's Rise Up Con. They're trying to kind of start to do kind of a Comic-Con for faith-based filmmakers and content creators. And so all of us involved in Nefarious are going to be a part of that event coming up this weekend. I'm going to be doing a Liberty Pastors event in Dallas at the end of July. I'm going to be doing an event with our good buddy Shannon Joy out in Rochester, New York in the middle of August. Why am I telling you guys this? Other than hopefully you'll come by and say hello. It's because doing 75 hard while you're on the road makes it harder. All right, just being away from things. And could not have had a better time to get hooked up with our friends at Balance of Nature. Just makes staying disciplined, it makes it simpler. It's never easy, but it makes it simpler. How? Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies contains 31 different fruits and vegetables in every dose. You can't beat it. Easy to swallow capsules, giving your body the vitamins, minerals, nutrients, the nourishment that it needs. I mean, you couldn't eat 31 different fruits and veggies if you tried. And that's if you could afford them these days, because most of us can't. All right, so go to balanceofnature.com. This has been a big part of what I've been doing this year to try to lose the last 40 or 50 pounds that I got to lose. I'm halfway there right now. You'll get 35% off plus $10 off any additional sets with your first order as a preferred customer if you use my discount code DACE when you go to balanceofnature.com. Now, this is going to be limited to 5 sets, but you'll still save a ton of money while getting all the fruits and vegetables you need in your daily diet. All right, that's code DACE for the big discount, 35% off at balanceofnature.com. That's balanceofnature.com. Real quick, I just received this email from a Randy Lawson. The voter fraud that you're talking about in Wisconsin has unfortunately been embraced by the GOP here. Election integrity action is thwarted at every turn by Republican Speaker of the Assembly, Robin Vos. We are trying to recall him right now. We did an overtime on this with the woman, the attorney, who originally brought the lawsuit against the ballot boxes in Wisconsin. And so this would have been early, mid-21 if you go back and want to find that overtime, probably, right? Yeah. Somewhere in there. And we didn't know what she was going to say. And she basically told us, if I recall right, Todd, I got into this essentially thinking I was going to sue every Democrat on planet Earth, and then found out it was actually the Republican speaker and leaders of the legislature that okayed all the drop boxes for ballots in the state.
Yep. Well, this is directly attached to the psychology, if not the flat-out cover-up of what you've talked about with COVID, because all of this came about because of COVID. How people just are not going to look in the mirror and admit that they were part of a scam. Mm-hmm. So this is the exact same emotional intelligence involved, which is to say almost none.
Well, hopefully there's a little bit more here now that we get to buy, sell, or hold, because we are giving it back to you, the people. All right? This show is now yours. You guys get to determine what we were going to talk about here for the next, hour. No topic is off limits. Aaron has selected the topics we will discuss. You guys have chosen those topics, though. And Todd, you and I have not seen any of these. We will react to them in real time. We'll buy it if we agree, or even if we don't but like it. We'll sell it if we don't. You are permitted to use holds, but this is frowned upon greatly because it's basically a sign that you're a punk and you've punked out and you're in total violation of the dude code. And so therefore something humiliating must happen to you in order for you to feel the true shame that you have earned and deserved. And it will usually involve something that includes Lindsey Graham. Because if there's anything that is shameful and emasculating, it is Lindsey, correct?
Correct.
All right. And so this week it's mystery meat. I
thought we were almost gonna like.
I'm not even going to tell you what it is. It's just, let's just put it this way. You don't want to know. You don't want to know.
I don't think so.
No, you don't. All right, Aaron, go ahead.
Coming up in overtime, we actually have a submission top 10 individuals more masculine than Lindsey Graham, if that makes it to the overtime. But
Only
first,
10?
Only 10.
Oh, okay.
But first, we're going to start with Sean Lulofs, who says the Uniparty fully includes the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, for all intents. I mean, yeah. This thing has been our whole political life, Steve. You know, it's been around saying things, doing things.
Yeah.
You know, it's.
Remember when there was the libertarian moment? That was cute. Yeah. Which was basically just people on the right who didn't want to talk about gay marriage and wanted to smoke weed. That's essentially what it was. Yeah.
I mean, they basically they tea partied themselves.
Very true. I will buy. I mean, what exactly is their platform? Criminals are good, borders are bad, drugs are great, and mutilate and drag queen the hell out of those kids. Yeah, we already have a party for this. What is their point and reason for being? I mean, what are they even there for?
Yeah, and it's not. And they've had opportunities. I mean, look at Ron Paul. That moment, you know, flesh on the bone, like with DeSantis and everything we talked about. And just everybody just kind of shrugged, and as you just said earlier, didn't show up. Mm-hmm. Like with that Ron Paul moment, like nothing. I mean, talk about not capitalizing on anything. Nothing, just nothing.
Isn't it just a party for Gnostics who are open about being Gnostics? They are as homosexual as the Democrat Party, and as
so people are convinced they have some secret knowledge, and what they do with their physical bodies, it has no moral standard.
Correct.
That's pretty much Gnosticism, right?
Yes.
I have secret knowledge, and what I do with my physical body is not up to any moral code whatsoever. So yeah, that's a great observation. But see, the problem is they're now the JV Gnostics.
Correct.
Because the Democrats have just gone full blown demonic, right?
So the one thing you could kind of respect to them is that there's
who's the them are now here? Pronouns. So we're talking the Libertarians or the Democrats?
The Libertarians.
Okay, all right.
I mean, they kind of...
I'm sorry, their pronouns are Z.
They preach from a playbook that you talk about all the time, you know, not joiners. You know, there was that sense that there's some... But now look at, they've totally been co-opted by the spirit of the age. So essentially
the Libertarian Party is Pride Month? I am on the edge.
Yes.
I am the edgy group that believes in every mainstream canard currently governing the country. Open all the borders. No one's a criminal. Do whatever you want with your bodies. Nothing's immoral. And trans and mutilate the hell out of those kids. But I'm the dissident. I'm in the dissident crowd. That's what Pride Month is, right?
Yeah.
We are finally coming forth. This insurgent minority of people who agree entirely with corporate America on everything. To let you know how edgy we are, right? Yes.
Good times.
Yes.
Next, we're going to go to Fedigator. The 2028 presidential election will be between John Fetterman, the Democrat, and Nancy Mace of the GOP. Seriously, can we take this? Can we take this somewhat seriously for a little bit?
I am taking it dead serious.
No.
Who would win in that matchup?
I don't even know who I'd vote for. I don't even know who I'd vote for.
I have a really hard time.
Steve, shoot me.
I think there are a ton.
You want a shot now?
Shoot me.
I think there are a ton of straight leftoid Democrats. Sorry, I sound like I've smoked a pack of menthols this morning. There are a ton of straight leftoids in the Democrat Party who are just waiting with bated breath for the words from Nancy Mace, I believe in a woman's right to choose, who would gladly simp for her.
That's
just
Madam President to you, buddy.
Madam President, who would gladly simp for her, saying, I'm not like those Democrats. I support this pretty Republican lady who believes in choice.
We could have ample bosoms versus hoodies. All right. Wet t-shirt contest versus hoodies. I mean, I saw and I can't remember the guy's name. I saw a post on Twitter this morning, right before we went on the air. And I think this gentleman, I mean, I've seen him post some good stuff in the past. I just can't remember his name. It's Peter something. And I think he meant this unironically. I'm confident that he did. We really just need to elect more honorable people. Okay. With you and what army? Where are all these honorable people that we could get elected? And furthermore, where are all these people that want to elect honorable people? Do you know where they are?
They're getting their 10th booster, Steve. That's where they are.
Yes, I would love to know where all these honorable people waiting to just sitting on the sidelines waiting to elect honorable people are. I'd love to find them.
The same honorable people that all willingly got locked down and
Correct.
masked. Come on, what is that?
Correct.
Didn't we learn anything in 2020?
No.
The same honorable people that didn't produce the red wave? What in the hell are you talking about?
Would we say after 2020? 2020 was not an outlier. It was the harvest. It was the harvest. The harvest was plenty, and these workers were many. Yes. Straight up, I think I'd vote for, if you made me, I wouldn't vote for either one. But if you made me, and if you told me, hey, I've got a gun to your kid's head, one of your kids' heads, and I'm pulling the trigger if you don't vote, I'm voting for Fetterman. I think he's a more honest individual. I think I disagree with him on everything outside of two issues, but I think he's a more honest person. I think Nancy Mace is, Nancy Mace is the person who sees what P.T. Barnum does and thinks everybody could do that. You know what I'm saying? And so tries P.T. Barnum's act, but it's clearly for her. P.T. Barnum is so good at this persona because he's embraced it. He's convinced himself that this is who he is, and that's why he's able to convince other people. It's the persona that he has created for himself has the id, super ego, and ego have all merged into one entity. You see what I'm trying to say? And that's why it comes across from him well, that guy's just real. Because he's merged the persona of who he would like to be with who he thinks he is and actually therefore is. What happens is what happens after a P.T. Barnum does this successfully, that kind of a character, another group of people emerge and think, oh, these folks are just suckers born every minute. They'll just take this mark all the time. But they're not as good at it. And it's cringy. And they'll say and try the exact same things that P.T. Barnum said and tried. And when he says it and stuff, you're like, I love that dude. It's my boy. Okay? Horns up. That's what you'll do. Okay? And then when the next person comes along and it's clearly schlocky and cringy and you're like, this is incredibly condescending and patronizing that you're trying this. It's clearly not who you are. That's Nancy Mace. Nevertheless, she will be, if we survive long enough, she'll be the Republican nominee for president. It could be as soon as 2028. By the way, the Democrats don't have enough character to nominate. I'm going to sell, now that I think about it. There is a much better chance Nancy Mace would be the Republican nominee in 2028. John Fetterman has no chance.
What if he starts wearing a purple wig?
No. Well, this current iteration of John Fetterman, who goes out and trolls Hamas activists right to their face, no shot. None. No way. Nancy Mace should be the Democrat nominee before John Fetterman. So I think I have to sell. I originally loved this, but the more I think about it, Fetterman is too sane. Fetterman is too honest. He could not be the Democratic nominee. They would lose their minds. Never happening. Nope. So, half right, half wrong.
I'm just buying based on how awful every part of that was. Just,
and
as if I
think it's a great. Don't get me wrong, Fedigator. I think it's a great submission, but the Democrats are too far gone to elect someone who has some form of sanity like John Fetterman. Not happening. Your willful need to inflict pain and suffering on yourself by just proposing, as if this election cycle is not terrible enough on it. Just props on that alone. That is a level of self-hatred that, well done. Honestly, the Catholic on the show said that level of self-flagellation I am down with.
He thought about it.
Yeah.
He typed it out.
Yep.
He sent, and
It's got that ruler's got a good rap, and you could dance to it, right?
Yeah.
That felt good across the knuckles. You liked it, yes.
There's as high as Russell Brand just elevated you. Way up there.
We're back to Todd's time in parochial school where he received the ruler on the knuckles because he knew he had it coming, and he appreciated the fact that it was deserved. It was a simpler time. Yes, well done.
Next, Tyler Mote says salt and vinegar is the best flavor of chips.
So I think this is in reaction to something that Kyle Mann at Babylon Bee tweeted out yesterday, which is they've done a study on this, and if you like salt and vinegar chips, you are literally a psychopath. Here's the thing. I freaking love salt and vinegar chips.
They're fantastic.
Like my favorite flavor of kettle chips is the salt and vinegar ones. Now, the problem is I always want to get them when I'm on the road at the airport, but the vinegar sticks to your fingers, and I got to get on the plane. I don't have time to wash my hands, but I don't want to get on my fingers and stuff are all sticky.
That's a category of things to keep to yourself.
Segue.
I like good smells. And I like good smells.
I like salt and vinegar chips.
I love them. I love them.
There's 10% of truth into what Kyle Mann said, though.
There is.
Is there? Because if you eat too many, which is very easy to do with lovely chips like that, lovely chips. That's the first time that term has been dropped on this show, I'm sure, in its history. If you eat too many of them, which it's easy to do, within 3 to 4 hours, you're peeling layers of skin off the inside of your mouth. Because of all of that salt and vinegar, all of that acidity just completely wreaks havoc on everyone's mouth. So you do have to have a little bit of psychopathy going on within you to be able to welcome that.
And I do.
So I understand where he's coming from. I wouldn't go that far, but
I tried them one day at an airport to spite you. I'm like, this can't be good. Okay.
Wait, you had never tried salt and vinegar before me?
I had not. No. I had not tried it, even though back in the day when I was growing up when I was growing up, white trash and Long John Silver's was a delicacy. Man, I used to pound my hush puppies with that vinegar that they used to have at the table there. Yeah, the malt vinegar. Yeah, so I'm like, this can't be good. So I tried it to spite you, and I'm like, this is some of the best potato chipping I've ever done in my entire life. I cannot believe how good these are. These are incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Marriage supper of the lamb. Type stuff.
Right next to the bacon.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes.
Quickly, before we get out of here in this segment, Dustin E.J. D'Entremont says Christian nationalism as a movement will eventually go the way of the young, restless, and reformed, but the impact of destroying the myth of neutrality and pluralistic liberalism will be felt long after we're gone.
It would take a long time to explain his reference to young, restless, and reformed, and I don't have time for that right now because we're up against a break. But by and large, I could see this being how it turns out. I definitely think the boats have been burned on the second part of his tweet. Like, we're not going back to we have to obey rules of decorum while they're burning our houses down. We're not going back to that. And so on that part, since I agree wholeheartedly with that, I guess I'll buy.
Yeah, we got a Christian edgelord problem here that's got to sort itself out before it has legs that you hope it has.
We'll come back. More Buy, Sell, or Hold is next. Back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. To do so, just email us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you listen to the podcast version, thank you. Please, if you wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review if you like the show. Thank you if you already have. And also, if you are a podcast listener, make sure you hit subscribe, or if you're on iTunes, it's follow. And that way, every time we do a new episode, it will show up in your feed every single time. And thank you to all of you that have done that as well. This part of the show brought to you by a new Blaze original coming your way. I watched the opening episode of this yesterday, and it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's called The Cover-Up. It's a docu-series that's debuting this Thursday on Blaze TV, and it goes after all of COVID stands ruling class. First and foremost, Anthony Fauci, and Matt Kibbe is in the captain's chair, piloting us through this excursion. I watched the opening episode featuring Dr. Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford, who we just had on the show, last week, I think it was. I was blown away by how good it was. As a company, we are really upping the ante here in the original content that we are creating. This is an absolute must-see, I have to tell you. Watching that again yesterday, a lot of the spite, anger that I have tried to show fruit of the spirit level of self-control where that is concerned. Okay.
Not so much.
Watching that yesterday, that all came roaring back. People have to pay for this. Okay. This is outstanding work by Matt Kibbe and the entire production crew. The production quality is top-notch. I would highly recommend. You do not want to miss this, all right? So if you go to FauciCoverup.com/Deace, that's FauciCoverup.com/Deace. Use the code FauciLied to get $30 off an annual subscription to Blaze TV at FauciCoverup.com/Deace. Use the code FauciLied to get $30 off. This debuts tomorrow. You absolutely don't want to miss it. It's fantastic. And with that, let's get back to more buy, sell, or hold. Aaron.
Let's now go to Alex Vargas, who says Elon Musk is the good Terminator sent back in time from the future to our present in order to balance out the bad Terminators that will eventually come. Grok, that's the Twitter artificial intelligence chat box. Neuralink, that's the stuff that goes in your brain. X, the social media platform. Starlink, the global telecommunications company. Those are all means by which he's attempting to redistribute power from the elites to the people so the people have a fighting chance over the bad Terminators once they take over. Come with me if you want to live.
It's either something like that or he's literally the Antichrist. I don't really see much in between. This is literally a gift. He's literally a gift from above for such a time as this. Or this is the greatest co-opting in the history of human civilization. To me, it's one or the other.
I'm selling. We have to go back. This is too futuristic. We're making too much of him in both directions.
Next, we go to Sean Griffiths, who says it takes more faith for the average person to believe in science and experts like the Big Bang, macroevolution, medicine, gender, climate, etc., than it does for the average Christian to believe in Christ. Almost all of them are basing their faith on testimonies of the experts. And I think that last sentence, when he's talking about all of them, he's talking about the average person believing in science/expertise.
I completely buy this. You guys might remember Amy and I, for our wedding anniversary one year, I had a pro-life speaking engagement in New York City. And so I took her with me. And we celebrated our anniversary out there, spent several days out there, and went to see Wicked on Broadway. We did the Statue of Liberty. We did. We were both huge fans of the Night at the Museum movie, so we did the Museum of Natural History in Central Park. Okay, do you guys remember? I took a picture of one of the things there at the Museum of Natural History, and I took a picture of it and sent it to you guys. Do you guys remember what it was?
I don't.
When you enter into like the astronomy cosmology section of the museum, I don't know if it's still there. In fact, I don't know how much of the Museum of Natural History is even still there. They tore down the Teddy Roosevelt statue, and we took pictures in front of it at the time. So who knows what's even there now? Okay. But one of the very first exhibits there, back in 2016, had a disclaimer on it. And I might even have the picture still in my phone. I've got so many pictures of autumn on my phone right now. It would take too much airtime to go through and find it. But the disclaimer literally says something to the effect of, we have no idea the true origin of the universe. It says it right in there. It says it right in there at the Museum of Natural History. At least it did in 2016. I don't know if that disclaimer is still there on the exhibit or not. That's kind of a big deal, don't you think?
It is.
Yeah. I mean, if you're admitting you don't know, pardon the expression, the genesis of your entire belief system. You don't know. I mean, if it's similar to the Imperial College survey on the spread of COVID, says it right there in the opening that we don't really know how COVID is spread. Okay, well, I mean, the entire simulation is what'll happen if we let COVID spread. Kind of a big deal that you're admitting to us you don't know how COVID spreads, right? That's kind of a big deal. And yet we are to trust the science, Mr. Dolby. Okay, trust your simulations on how COVID will spread, even though you're telling us you don't know how it is spread. Similarly, trust the science. Okay, you're blinded by and blinded with. But at the same time, we have no idea. All these things we're drawing conclusions from, we don't actually know what their origins are. One of the other exhibits that Amy and I went to at the Museum of Natural History was a big planetarium show on dark matter. And Neil deGrasse Tyson comes on and introduces it, and he's the narrator of the film, and comes right on. And in the very first thing it says, we didn't really know until like 10 minutes ago that dark matter even existed. And the reason why it matters is because, well, it completely fundamentally changed our understanding of the universe. Huh. Weird. So, something that could completely, radically... So, base your entire belief system on that which you're admitting you know not what the origin of your belief system is. And then number two, at any moment, you could discover something that would radically and dramatically change what your belief system actually is. And yet, we should predicate all of human civilization on these variables and unknowables. That's insanity.
But we did it.
But that's what we did. Because here's the other part too. Before, if you went to the Museum of Natural History and saw a show about, saw a planetarium show before they began to understand dark matter and its role in the universe, would they have like told you in the middle of that show, hey, but just don't take anything we just told you seriously, because who knows, any day now we may discover something that'll prove with ourselves. Would they have said that? Would they have shown that level of humility?
No.
No. It is, after all, science! So, if you're keeping score here, here's what they're admitting. We don't know the origins of our own belief system. We don't know what information within our belief system will present itself at any time that may radically change our belief system. And therefore, we have no idea if what we're telling you right now is dead wrong. But believe us and let us run your society and civilization anyway. That's literally crazy. That is literally crazy. Scientists told us that people of darker skin color were less intelligent beings just 2 generations ago. But they were the progressives, right? They were on the cutting edge. They were on the cutting edge of societal evolution. Now, if you repeat that science, it's been discredited. You're a racist. So how do we know that the stuff they're telling us now, they won't be racist for in 20, 30, 50 years? They won't be homophobes for, they won't be bigots for in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. How do we know? You and I are old enough to remember Time magazine putting global cooling on its cover. You and I are old enough to remember Leonard Nimoy narrating episodes of In Search of about the coming ice age. You and I are old enough to remember that. Yeah. Now we're all going to fry and burn to death. You cannot have a human civilization based on a belief system that doesn't know where you came from, doesn't know that what it currently believes is actually going to hold up over time. And then third, therefore, doesn't know where it's going. Because at any point in time, we could be proven wrong. We could be the baddies now at any time. And you know what happens when you end up with that? You have chaos. So again, here are your two options. It's Christ or chaos. Those are the only two options you have. They're the only two options you will ever have. Choose wisely.
Well, let's be honest. We've chosen chaos. I'm only selling that because you're right, but we've known this for a long time. When did what's his first Stein's Expelled come out? That movie's 20 years old, right, Steve? It's the same thing.
Like 2004.
They get Dawkins at the end of that thing, just saying, "Yeah, probably aliens." We've known this, and because in our comfort, chaos didn't scare us. Not being comfortable scared us more. And we handed it over to all these people. We have known this. This is a lamentation of a previous age. We decided we didn't care about making the earth flat. We made our decision. I reckon we have to reconcile ourselves to that. We are so far down this rabbit hole. Man, remember those conversations you have about the slippery slope and how close we are to the bottom? I mean, we're in the abyss. Just because there's stuff around and bells and whistles to make you feel comfortable doesn't mean you're not in the abyss.
I don't think you guys are ready for the next one, but we're going to go there anyway. What a transition to. Denethor 2024 has this. Never ask for Todd's help with picking out a new comfortable chair for the man cave. For those of you listening, this is a Photoshop of Todd in a furniture store, looking approvingly at one particular chair that appears to be a torture device of some sort. Is it a torture device or is it like old Sparky? No, I think it's just a torture device. So buy, sell, or hold. Never ask for Todd's help when picking out a new comfortable chair for the man cave. I'm going to buy that.
Yeah, that's probably good advice.
On behalf of the brand, I will buy. Todd is literally not sitting in that chair at home. Okay.
No, it's worse than that one.
It's worse than that. But on behalf of the brand, all right, I will buy.
When was the last time you went to a furniture store, Todd?
Oh. No memory. No memory.
No memory. Do you guys have furniture?
We do.
You do?
We do.
What kind of furniture do you have? Do you know?
Yeah, just normal stuff.
Do you know what your furniture's called?
No.
Do you know what a chair is?
Do you know
brands and things like that?
No. Do you know what a couch is?
Do.
You do? What about, do you know the difference between a couch and a love seat?
I think so.
Okay. Do you know what an ottoman is? Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop now because I'm starting to sound really gay. I'm sorry.
Well, that happened when you were talking about the smells.
I do like good smells.
Ago.
I do like good smells. I do like good smells. I do.
We just picked up a listener. Lindsey Graham is now listening in on iHeart or wherever he's listening.
Having that picture in the background as you go to new submissions, by the way, is a great touch. Yes,
I appreciate that. I planned it that way.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Bob Brooks says, during the upcoming mass persecution of Christians in 2025, viewers of the Steve Deace Show will recognize one another by drawing near and whispering to each other, "Look at the polls."
Nice. Yes, we'll be sitting in camps, convinced that the red wave is coming to save us at any moment.
You joke, but bye.
The red wave is coming to save you, Barbara. Yes, that's the horror movie now. Okay, it used to be the monsters would come. Now it's that the heroes never do. I'll buy. I like it. I think that's sufficiently snotty. I appreciate it. Yes, I'm in.
Yep.
Next, Judd Noel says it's possible that full preterism is the correct eschatology of the Bible.
All right, so this is a good tease, actually,
yes,
because
that's why I selected it.
All right, good job, Aaron. So Friday we're gone because I'm going to be in Pigeon Forge at Rise Up Con at Kevin Sorbo's event. So Friday we're gone, but you're going to get an original episode, okay? And man, I'm still getting blown up from the people in the audience more cessationist, more reformed about having Greg Locke on.
Did you see he was just made an apostle or something?
And now that he's out there, because in the interview, by the way, I specifically asked him, I didn't mention the name, but the person I was asking, and if you go back and watch the interview, I said, hey, one of my dubious, issues with this kind of ministry is it's traditionally associated with people who claim they can only do this after you take 47 offerings, right? Well, that's a specific reference to Benny Hinn, but I didn't just specify Benny Hinn because he's not the only one that does that charlatan scam. I mean, that's a long and undistinguished list. Well, now people are like sending me articles that Greg Locke's like affirming Benny Hinn. And we made a pact when we did these interviews that since we gave these people so much time to then like talk about him after the fact, if we had something to say, we should have said when we had them on, right? And then there's a segment where you guys get to give your own takes on it after they're gone, right?
And I stand by what I said after he was on.
Okay. So what's going to happen now is an entirely new group of people are going to blow up my inbox, and I'm going to be called a heretic and a deceiver and a false teacher because for Friday's show, you're going to get an original show, but it's going to be our second evergreen of the year. Okay. So we're going to be joined by Gary DeMar of the American Vision. And Gary DeMar, hardcore postmillennialist, hardcore reform theology guy, okay? And we're going to spend a good hour of real time with him going through end times events, eschatology, and asking questions and getting his viewpoints on them and why he believes in things like preterism, okay? Now, so that's a good tease for Friday's show. So those of you who were you were convinced. Those of you that are emailing Joel Webbin and Douglas Wilson and telling them how dare you allow this charismaniac simp to speak at your events here in the next couple of years. All right. What's going to happen now is you guys are all going to be like, I knew the Lord anointed you. I knew after we do this interview on Friday. And then all the people that love the Greg Locke interview are like, all get a turn on me. It's like you never made nefarious. It's like you learned nothing, man. Okay. Right. That's exactly what's going to occur here. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, precisely. So
it already is right now. I can hear it.
Yes.
Your inbox
in
is
fact, people are preliminary. It's in the drafts in your emails. You've already written them out. They're in the draft. All right. And then you're going to wait to listen to the interview and pick out the one thing to like, and that will justify what I'm about to send, and it'll get sent. And I'm good with it. I get paid the better than average bucks now, so I'm okay with taking the heat. I think these are good conversations to have with either a Greg Locke or a Gary DeMar, and let people make up their own minds. But many of you are going to hear a full-blown eschatology you've never heard before on this show on Friday.
And he brings the heat on a couple of occasions.
He does.
But I think it's really important that people listen with as much of an open mind as possible. Not to say an open mind when you hear leftoids say that all of the time. Just have an open mind so that we can deceive you.
Correct.
Listen as much as you can, because just for the education, just for the three-dimensional thinking, I still consider myself pre-mill after listening to Gary DeMar, but there are some things that I learned about that persuasion of eschatology that I did not know before.
So like Friday afternoon, everybody that wanted me canceled from like every reformed event I've been invited to, they're now going to want me invited to all of them. And everybody who thought that after what we went through in the spiritual warfare of the making him nefarious, that my eyes were open to a broader unseen realm. I'm now going to be a false teacher. But that's what happens, when you do a show like this, and I'm okay with it. So that's coming up on Friday. So as to the term preterism, what it means is that many of the events that we take as futuristic prophecies for the end times were actually already fulfilled in history. That's what it means. Okay. And we'll get into this with Gary DeMar on Friday, by the way. This is something that will be discussed in depth. And one of the key points here is, when do you think the book of Revelation was written? Throughout much of the church age, we thought the book of Revelation was written prior to AD 70. And so if you thought that, well, then when you look at John's letter, the references to the seven hills and all that, you see all kinds of references to ancient Rome and what happened.
Talking about something that was about to happen.
Correct. And the abomination of desolation would occur when the Romans destroyed the temple and basically ended that era of the sacrificial system once and for all. Okay? If you believe, as we believed in more modern times, that the book of Revelation was written in post 90 AD, well, then those events would have already happened, right? And so you think that there's a double foreshadowing, that the first foreshadowing was what happened at the time of the Maccabees when Antiochus Epiphanes went into the Holy of Holies and slain the pig on the altar. That was the first abomination of desolation. The second abomination of desolation is when the Romans sacked Jerusalem and sieged it in AD 70. And ended the temple and the sacrificial system, okay? And then you think that that's going to have that those were archetypes to what will happen in a future event with the Antichrist. Am I good so far?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what those things mean. That's the difference between a futurist and a preterist, okay? So I do think this, just in my own personal study, if you believe the book of Revelation was written in 65 AD, then I do think you can find in that era of history many of these events to have fulfilled many of those prophecies. For me, just speaking of me, and I think I expressed this to Gary when we interviewed him, I still struggle with how the preterist view answers what Paul says about the coming of a lawless one. He is clearly talking about a futuristic event, all right, and one that would have broad impact.
And I still haven't had a good answer for that.
Yeah.
Still haven't heard a good answer for that.
And often preterists will say, well, that was a reference to Nero because his name would also be 666. Okay. And Nero would have broad impact. I mean, he was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful empire in the world at the time. Okay. But yeah. So, okay. So what was the proposition again?
It is possible that full preterism is the correct eschatology of the Bible.
I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible. So given the way you worded it, I'll buy.
Here's a heck of a tease for you. Do you remember Todd's comments at the end of that when Todd and I give our reactions? Do you remember what he said?
I don't, no.
I think you're going to get more emails about that than anything that you say.
Okay.
Or just having this guy. Do you remember what you said, Todd?
I don't even remember my I mean, I remember some things, but specifically, I'm not sure I know what
I'll tell you.
Was it what I said about pre-mill?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Then I do remember that, yeah.
Okay. All right. What do you say about his view that preterism may be the correct eschatology, that most of these prophecies, or all of them, have been fulfilled to some degree?
Well, speaking of brands, I'm Catholic. But yeah, I'll generally speaking, I'll buy. I guess that's a sufficient tease.
Which is what justifies you guys' amillennial viewpoint that the only thing left to be fulfilled now is for Christ to return and separate the sheep from the goats. That's kind of what you guys think, right? And you're not alone. There are Protestant denominations that think this too. Lutherans, for example. That was Luther's eschatology. So, yeah.
I don't remember if we did this on the air at one point, but we discussed having basically a round table to debate all at one time concurrently the various views about eschatology. Having had this conversation and remembering and kind of going back and editing, making sure everything fits in the proper segments for the show. Man, there's a lot of stuff that we could have gotten into that we just did not have time for, and I'm all in on that idea if we want to do that someday for an evergreen.
Here's my concern. Finding three people that can handle that in a come now, let us reason together model, so we don't show our rear ends. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
To the rest of the the unbelieving world over this.
I think it's going to go more like Jane, you ignorant slut kind of thing.
I'm concerned about that.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you should be.
I mean, I watched a roundtable with Justin Peters and Michael Brown, who I've been friends with for years, and two other gentlemen whose reputations are pretty solid, debating cessationism and charismaticism. And I got to tell you,
Steve wept.
Yeah, and I'm no shrinking violet, guys. I'm not the one who says, hey, hold the blood. Okay, but I just... Okay, maybe that's the best review I can give, the most accurate anyway.
How do you spell that?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Whereas opposed if we just interview these people individually and I just ask them the questions that the other viewpoints would have.
Which is what we've been doing. Yeah.
Which is what we've been doing. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, moving on. Another one about Todd. M. Janey 2024 says, Todd's hair is so much better now. He doesn't look like one of the greasers from Greece is the word. Todd even looks younger. Stay clear of the grease hair gel.
I haven't even told you this, Todd. The amount of emails I get about your grooming is disturbing. Okay, and has happened for years. Okay, but because I'm a heterosexual male, I don't care, and I just delete them all. All right. But here's what who sent this?
M. Janey 2024.
M. Janey 2024, I'm sure means well.
No.
What have you done, M. Janey 2024? Do you realize what you have done? When Todd shows up here on Monday, okay, old growth, no bath, you'll be lucky if he's wearing something other than sackcloth and ash. All right? Do you understand what you just done? Do you understand what you have done?
No.
Complimenting this man's grooming, his wife is coming for you. Do you understand what you have just done? I mean, he'll be Captain Caveman this month when we come back on Monday.
Can't be moved. Nothing's going to change. I'm standing on this wall. I'm doing a very great work. You can't change me. There's nothing. I mean, I don't even like this.
If Todd came in covered in ashes,
lights.
if he came in covered in ashes and dressed in sackcloth, would you or I even notice? Probably not.
I would, but I would not say anything. And I do still like good smells.
Our fetishes are so weird. Like all that is that's like a thin film of like hair goop run through my finger. It takes 2 seconds when my hair is longer, and then I come under these lights. So you think you've like discovered the Holy Grail with your analysis here? Like what? What? Can we have nice things? You wonder why my brand is. Honestly, the torture chair thing. Like I have a bare minimum of expectation for sacrifice. I know it's folly because this is the reality.
Aaron, what is 70-year-old Todd going to be like, do you think?
Yeah, I love how in a period of about 90 seconds, he dropped the phrase, our fetishes are so weird. And then what was the thing that you just said, Todd? I can't even remember already. You just dropped another banger just a couple moments ago. I mean, he is a fountain, a veritable fountain of
Cantankerous.
Todd. Cantankerous.
This is like there's
an endless fount.
Yes.
This is my great frustration. There's no.
Tell us your great frustration.
It has to do with yesterday. It's the same thing. There's no talking people off the comfort wall. There just isn't. They want what they want. They obsess over what they obsess about. You can't. There's no eyes to see. There's no ears to hear. I mean, I don't even like. You've never told me that before. Like you get that.
Because it never came up until Aaron brought it up here in the.
What are you people talking about? What do you really care about?
Todd is going to be on his front lawn at the retirement home in a stockade. All right, emulating the level of suffering he believes we need to be prepared for.
I don't have to emulate it. It's going to be here because you people did nothing. I'm just going to be saying I told you.
Todd will be like the VeggieTales, then Jonah across the street from Nineveh with the drink with the umbrella in it, just waiting for the sulfur to fall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man.
Good times. Yes.
Quick
good times.
Mount Rushmore before we get out of this segment. Jamie Burwell, Mount Rushmore BBQ, Texas barbecue, Carolina barbecue, Kansas City barbecue, and Mississippi barbecue. Never heard of Mississippi barbecue.
Neither have I. I've only heard of the first three. I didn't know there were like more.
Let's substitute Mississippi for Nashville. And
I mean, is there like Kansas barbecue?
Kansas
is there
City.
Wyoming barbecue?
I don't know.
Okay. I'll buy, sure. You bet. Because I like barbecue, so I'll buy.
Yeah. Well, it's Carolina, but that's it. Okay. Yeah.
Well, let's not waste any time. Let's bring him right in. He is the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation himself, our good friend Daniel Horowitz. My friend, good to see you. How you be?
Thank God. I'm still waiting for my viral moment, Steve. It's going to come one day.
Well, maybe I can give you one right now, okay? So I want to, now that the jury has been sent to deliberations in the Stormy Daniels case in New York, okay? I am of the opinion, and I want to get your take on this, that there is much more on the line here for Alvin Bragg than Donald Trump. The verdict, one way or the other, no matter how it's constructed, how it's worded, how it's presented. I don't think it changes a single opinion one way or the other. I don't think it has any political impact on anybody's votes one way or the other. And I think the whole thing is clearly politicized in the minds of many anyway. I mean, we've got, the Republican congressional delegations going there. Yesterday, you had the the Biden campaign send Robert De Niro to basically, lose his bowels, on camera. The whole thing's just a political farce. But if you're Alvin Bragg and you strike out here, that dude's politically sleeping with the fishes snap. Like Me Too, he'll get Me Too days, weeks at the most. There's way more on the line here for Alvin Bragg than Donald Trump, in my view. What do you think?
You mean Democrats don't elevate their Mitt Romneys and Martha McSallys to positions of prominence? No, they tend not to do that.
When they send you and I off to the camps in 2025, 2026, Alvin Bragg will be one of our roommates if he strikes out here. He'll be at the same camp we will be at. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no affirmative action in their politics. In fact, they run the politics like the way the private sector used to run. It's performance driven, and that's that's the irony of the left. They have a very cutthroat free market approach to communism, because they know that communism doesn't work. In other words, they know you can't grift the grift. See, our side doesn't realize that. You at least have to be real about your grift. Look, when it comes to the trial, I haven't covered it because I felt that the left did what they wanted to do. I always felt it was about getting him the nomination, and that's what they did. Mission accomplished. It got him the nomination. At this point, I don't think there's anything that can come out that will make a difference. You and I noted early on that it was a little bit bizarre, given the gravity of the situation, how Trump himself nor the people around him were even calling for a defund fight. So we're like, they're going to throw him in jail. This is over. But then, okay, well, then don't you have to lie down on the tracks and have some sort of fight? Now we're like, now let's just clear the decks for November. So, that's why I really don't have much to say on it. With that said, I do have a hard time believing that you have a jury pool like that's not going to convict him on something.
So, agree or disagree, this has no outcome on the election in 23 weeks, one way or the other? None. Zero.
No, there's no outcome on the coin toss of the football game.
I do think, and I've thought this all along, the one case that has that kind of blast radius is the D.C. case, because that's January 6th. That's their unholy grail. That's their chief narrative, to label him an insurgent and everything else, put him in a position where he either has to differentiate himself from his own base of people who have been targeted and imprisoned and therefore look like a quisling, or embrace them and therefore be labeled an insurgent. To me, that's always been their most lethal potential play, and we're basically waiting any day now for the Supreme Court to render us a verdict before June 30th on Trump's immunity to see if that trial will go forward. Your thoughts?
So I don't think that's going to make a difference either. Okay. I really don't, because I think at the end of the day, that's a political crime. And the die is cast in terms of where you are politically with Trump. I actually think it's the documents case, if they would have gotten a liberal judge to make a more of a favorable timeline of the proceedings for the Biden administration. That one you could say, hey, we'll have new revelations. You did this to breach national security. You were caught doing, here it's like, okay, you cheered on January 6th. Is that what they're going to say? The die is cast on that already.
The one area where I might push back on you, and I rarely do that, normally I will submit to your analysis if it differs from mine, is when you look at all of the public data available, and this is a conversation that you and I have been having privately for the last few weeks, Joe Biden is singularly polling poorly than the rest of the Democratic Party comprehensively everywhere. He's polling poorly than compared to them in battleground gubernatorial races, Senate races. They have a decent lead in the generic congressional ballot, according to basically every pollster, right or left. Trump's own pollster last week said he was still losing independents by 4 points, which is almost an insurmountable margin for a Republican to overcome. And so why? Why is Trump considered competitive, if not a slight favorite at this moment in these same polls? Biden is historically underperforming with key Democratic constituencies. And I think there's two reasons for this. One, they do think he's too old. And legitimately. And then two, they think because everyone else thinks this, they think he's going to cost them the election. Okay. Now, you can give that opinion in May, June, and July when you don't have to vote and air your grievance that way. When it comes down to nut cutting time, are you going to actually vote like that? When we start voting here, which is what now? Labor Day, basically. And it's voting season is what we do now. Okay. But if that's your number one issue, if you're the Biden campaign, is you cannot unify and energize your own base. Well, who can do that for you? So, you get a federal court to remind everybody, hey, just in case basically, I'm literally dying out here in real time. But this guy over here is the literally Hitler insurgent that tried to overthrow our beloved democracy.
It's funny because we're looking at the same things, and I conclude the opposite, Steve. I think in terms of the anti-Trump, they've maxed out. Like you said, the weakness is the affirmative support for Biden. And I think, again, they get their operation together. They get their, ground game. I really don't see, and I know I'm in the minority here, I don't see how Biden loses, because you're looking at all those polls, and the one thing consistent about them is the low overall numbers. So even when it's a head-to-head without multiple candidates, you'll find Trump 41-40 rather than 48-47. And again, you put together with the fact that the Democrats have won every election. They're on a winning streak no matter what happens. And then even the polls pretty much reflect that down ballot. You have to believe that the presidential ballot will oscillate back to where that is, especially given that, like you said, it's all coming from the fact that you poll Democrats. Do you want Biden? No. Who's excited about him? But ultimately, general presidential elections are a blood sport in this country. And when you get started with that, the Democrats have more money and ground game than ever before. They're going to blitz that. I don't see how anything a court's going to do that's going to jazz them up more. If anything, it would be the white, very highly educated Democrat base, and that pays attention to that sort of stuff. And they're not the ones that are not turning out. It's more maybe some of the minority voters, like we saw a little bit with Hillary in 2016. And again, that hinges on whether they have a successful ground game or not. I really don't see the court proceedings making a difference.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You want to add one more thing? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and as far as the other side of the ledger, as far as the Republican base, I think, look, there is activated in terms of making him a martyr no matter what they do. I think you've maxed out in terms of that. The question is, do you have Nikki Haley voters that are maybe, these normie types that don't like what Biden's doing to the country, but they still don't understand it's the Fourth Reich. So maybe if he's convicted of something, they believe a conviction equals guilt, because they still believe we have a justice system. So maybe it would hurt him from that perspective. But in general, I really think, it's Stalingrad. It's just everyone's dug in. Again, it's remarkable to have such low numbers when you have the two most well-known people to run head-to-head for president in modern history. And that's just simply astounding. You would expect, like I said, to see more of a 48-47 split in these polls. So I just think it's stupid for Republicans to believe this is going to sort itself out. And yeah, it will work itself out that somehow you're going to have a 10 to 15 point spread, like Republicans losing every swing state, struggling to win the Ohio Senate race. But heck, they're, neck and neck in Virginia. I just don't, even when we weren't as polarized as a nation, that was pretty unusual for that to occur. And certainly now it usually will oscillate back to the inveterate partisan divide.
Okay. Let's talk about primaries and what happened in Texas with its primary last night. Your takeaways from that, because this is kind of now, Texas is kind of, in terms of its body politic, they don't have a Ron DeSantis leader there as the face of the party, but in terms of its body politic, it's basically the Republican California. It's the trend-setting state. It's kind of the mouth of the red state river is Texas. All right. So what did you see out of those primaries last night? And that'll lead me to the second question, which is the trend that we're seeing where we are having much more success taking rhinos out in state level primaries as opposed to national office primaries, and why you may think that is.
Well, it's your number 2 point that proves the number one. That's the point. And once again, we saw last night that you had a guy like Tony Gonzalez that even ran amok gun issues. Okay, that's the one core thing that you don't violate in a Republican primary. Voted for gun control, called Chip Roy's border bill unchristian. Because not to bring in the Venezuelan gangbangers and sex traffickers, that's unchristian. So, but he still won. It was extremely narrow. It was a very great performance for a challenger to come within 400 votes. But at the end of the day, you're never going to get more favorable circumstances because incumbents usually don't give you such a wide target. They're much more careful in terms of the votes they take than Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez is among the most liberal Republicans. So to not be able to get him out is very telling. And also Brandon Herrera, the challenger, he did raise $1.4 million. Now, he was severely outspent, but realistically, that's always going to happen. When you challenge an incumbent and they perceive you as a real threat, which he was, they're going to have as much money as they need. So the best you can do is have at least enough to get out your message, which he did. And again, it's not to take away from him. It was amazing, but even that couldn't win. The bottom line is this. At a federal level, absent a Trump endorsement in your favor, there is no way to win. We are batting zero. Not a single person went down. And we are now facing the proposition, thanks to Trump's endorsement, that it could very well be the only person to go down in the primaries, despite an unprecedented litany of betrayals coinciding with those primaries when we're facing so many existential crises, is the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Bob Good. So that's where we are with that. But related to the money, okay, this is really the thing. You can't beat money. And this is what I've learned. They have an unlimited supply of money to run on our issues. So until and unless we go to state conventions instead of primaries, we're never going to change it at a federal level. Now, you go to the state legislature. After last night, 15 incumbent state house members were defeated. So 15 in total. And that might have been more than a 50% success rate. Now, to be clear, we had going for us something we rarely have, where you have someone of the stature of Ken Paxton endorsing in most of these cases, and in almost half the cases, Trump himself also for once did endorse on the right side. Now, freeze frame, Steve, that is when we talk about it doesn't have to be this way, we can't have nice things, but we could. That is a glimpse into, if you multiply that by 25 red states for 6 consecutive election cycles that Trump was the leader of the party, could you imagine cumulatively where we would have been as a party, as red states, as a nation, had we had that Texas dynamic with the Trump-Paxton thing everywhere? Keep in mind, like you had yesterday, the Wyoming governor getting rid of a physician because he spoke out against castration. Okay, so that's what we still have in the other red states. But interestingly enough, Dade Phelan, the Rhino speaker, all of his lieutenants got defeated. He likely won't be able to get reelected speaker, but he narrowly won his seat. You know why? He spent $9 million in a state legislative seat. I don't even know how you do that. It's all money. So a smaller, generally speaking, without Dade Phelan's $9 million, incumbency doesn't loom as large in a legislative district. You could knock doors and cover territory quicker. Mm-hmm. And that's the only place we're being successful, and commensurate with how organized we are. We had the contract with Texas. That's how much we're going to succeed. A lot of these races hinge on a few hundred votes. Imagine if you had a fraction of the grift corps putting in a fraction of this cash into these state legislative races. We have Montana and South Dakota coming up next week. Every one of our incumbents, the good guys, are being challenged. We're playing offense as well. This will hinge on a few hundred votes, whether we have another Florida or another Wyoming. And it's nice to be the only one who cares, but thanks for giving me some airtime, Steve. I mean, it's only all of civilization on the line, Steve. Right?
Is it? I don't know.
Got a viral moment. I'm about to make one.
Yeah, I think we got you your viral moment. All right, good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, here we're good. All right, we're good. We got our phones, and it's all good.
We're good.
Hey, upload that to YouTube. How many clicks? We're gonna keep doing it until we can no longer do it.
Indeed, we will. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, gentlemen, your thoughts before we close things out here today?
Yeah, that's incredibly honest about Gonzalez. Again, it's on the border itself. If you can't win there, folks, what kind of come did you, Isaiah 1, where would you yet be struck? We just do not have a people that are interested on the national level of standing for anything that really matters.
There are far too many people who have a very special relationship with their television sets. And the political reality for those people right now is that politics is the greatest TV show that they've ever seen. And this TV show promises to fix all of the problems. A lot of people who love their TV shows and love the US of A, and they think that the TV show they're watching called Politics is going to save the USA. You know who I'm talking about. I'll leave it there.
All right, how many do we have enough for?
Oh,
overtime?
we've got a ton.
Oh, all right. So we're going to stick around and do some bonus buy, sell, or hold for subscribers today at blazetv.com/Deace. We'll get underway with that here. We're going to start recording it literally right after we sign off, and then it'll be posted later today at blazetv.com/Deace. For the rest of you, we will see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, Romans 8:28.